In this lesson, we are going to look at a couple of impersonal passive voice forms. But first, we interrupt this video for some breaking news. There has been a robbery in the high street. The bank was robbed this afternoon. It is believed that the suspect is a young man. The robber is believed to have stolen more than £4 million. He is said to be armed and dangerous. Sorry about that. Before we continue with the grammar explanation, let's take a moment to look at some of the sentences from that news report. A lot of this report uses the passive voice. For example, the bank was robbed this afternoon. Others are passive but follow a specific form. For example, it is said that the suspect is a young man. Or, the robber is believed to have stolen more than £4 million. These two sentences are examples of the impersonal passive forms that we're going to look at today. First, we're going to explain what impersonal passive forms are. Then we'll have a look at how to form impersonal passive sentences before moving on to talk about when these impersonal passive forms are used. Finally, we'll check that you have understood the grammar with some questions to check your grammar comprehension. Before any of that, let's just have a quick reminder of what the passive voice is. What is the passive voice? Well, the passive voice is simply a form where we emphasize the object of a sentence and what is done to the object rather than who or what is doing it. For example, an active sentence might say that somebody robbed the bank. But in the passive voice we could say that the bank was robbed. The passive voice starts with the object that something is being done to, then the verb to be, conjugated however you need, and then a verb in the past participle form. In this case, the bank is the object, was is the past simple of the verb to be, and robbed is the participle of the verb. If you want to revise this in more detail, follow the links to our free lesson and interactive tests. Let's move on to the topic of the video, advanced or impersonal forms of the passive voice. There are two common impersonal forms that use the passive voice in English. Here is an example of each. The robber is believed to have stolen millions of pounds. It is believed that the robber stole millions of pounds. We sometimes call these forms impersonal because it isn't apparent who is doing the activity of the verb. In these examples, we are told that he is believed to have stolen millions of pounds, or that it is believed that he stole millions of pounds. But it isn't stated or apparent exactly who believes this. Sometimes these forms don't translate well into other languages, especially when these languages have distinct impersonal forms which make this type of sentence unnecessary. News update! We have an update on the bank robbery story. Police are still looking for the robber. However, it is believed that he has left the country. The public are advised to call the police if they see the robber. It is not expected that the police will recover the stolen money. Sorry about that. Now, back to the grammar. Do you remember the two impersonal passive forms that we looked at before the interruption? We just saw a few more examples in that news update. The public are advised to call the police if they see the robber. It is not expected that the police will recover the stolen money. Well, these forms are similar but distinct, so let's have a look at each individually. Let's have a look at the first of these forms. One of the two forms that we're looking at always starts with it, which is then followed by a passive verb, which is formed with to be and a past participle, which is then followed by a clause starting with that. It plus the passive form plus that followed by a clause. For example, it is believed that he has left the country. So remember, when we start with it, we follow with a that phrase. Let's have a look at the second form. In this version, we start with the object, like he or she or the bank, which is followed by a passive verb, which is the verb to be and a past participle, which is then followed by an infinitive verb. For example, he is believed to be dangerous. In this form, we use the object, he, a passive form, is believed, and an infinitive, to be dangerous. If we want to use this form to talk about the past, we use the auxiliary verb to have. For example, he is believed to have left the country. This form, using the infinitive of the auxiliary verb have, followed by a past participle, is called a perfect infinitive. The perfect infinitive indicates that the verb happened in the past. So far, we've seen some examples that use the verbs believe, think, and say, but you can use plenty of different verbs in this form. For example, allege. It was alleged that the company had engaged in fraudulent activities. Anticipate. It is anticipated that the budget will be approved by the end of the month. Assume. It is assumed that the project will be completed on schedule. Believe. It is widely believed that the economy is on the path to recovery. Calculate. The costs are calculated to be within the allocated budget. Claim. It is claimed that the man saw the robbery. Consider. It is considered to be the biggest robbery the town has ever seen. Declare. It was declared to be a serious crime. Discover. The robber was discovered to be an ex-client of the bank. Estimate. He is estimated to have stolen more than £4 million. Expect. Police are not expected to recover the money. Find. The actual amount stolen was found to be higher than estimated. Hope. It is hoped that witnesses will be able to describe the man. Known. The bank is known to have good security. Report. It was reported that nobody was injured during the robbery. Rumour. It is rumoured that the man was an ex-employee of the bank. Say. He is said to be one of the most dangerous criminals in the country. Suppose. It is supposed that the man knew how much money was in the bank. Suggest. It has been suggested that the man had help from someone who worked in the bank. Think. It is commonly thought that the new policy will benefit small businesses. Understand. It is understood that further investigations will be conducted. So, why do we need this form and when do we use it? Well, as I mentioned earlier, English doesn't really have a distinct impersonal form that many languages have, so we use this structure to say that someone or something does something without mentioning who they are. For example, when we said that the robber is believed to have stolen more than £4 million, we don't say who believes this. It is left ambiguous. This form is often used in academic writing and news media. This is because it has a formal register, it emphasises the object and gives the impression of impartiality or objectivity. However, there is a tendency in modern English to avoid the passive voice as much as possible, to be as clear as possible. Have you got it? Let's see. Let's have a look at a couple of examples together. If we start with an active sentence like, they think that he robbed the bank, we can express this in two different impersonal passive forms. If we start with it, we would say, it is thought that he robbed the bank. So we have it, followed by a passive verb made up of to be and the past participle, which is then followed by a clause starting with that. If we start with it, the object, we would say, it is thought that he robbed the bank. So we have it, followed by a passive verb made up of to be and a past participle, which is then followed by a clause or phrase starting with that. But if we start with he, things are a little different. Remember that the impersonal passive form that starts with the object is then followed by a passive verb and then an infinitive verb. In this case, a perfect infinitive because we're talking about the past. He is thought to have robbed the bank. Let's have a look at another one together and then you can do some on your own. We could say, people suspect that he is the robber. But this doesn't sound very formal. How would we say the same thing in an impersonal passive form starting with it? Remember, when we start with it, we follow with a that phrase. So we could say, it is suspected that he is the robber. Great! Did you get it? Next, let's have a look at the same sentence, but beginning with he. So don't forget, when we start with the object, we follow with an infinitive verb. So he is suspected to be the robber. Okay, now try a few on your own to check that you've got it. Let's try this one. His family believe that he is innocent. How could we make this an impersonal passive sentence starting with it? It is believed. It is believed that he is innocent. Did you get it? When we start with it, we follow with a that phrase. Now let's try starting with the object. He. He is believed. What comes next? He is believed to be innocent. Did you get it right? Let's try one more, this time a negative. People don't expect that the police will find the money. Let's start with it. So it, then the passive part. It is not expected, and the rest. It is not expected that the police will recover the money. Did you get it? Good. What about if we start with the object, the police? The police are not expected to recover the money. So when we start with the object, in this case the police, we continue with an infinitive form, in this case to recover. Did you get that? Great. If you have any questions or doubts, feel free to ask in the comment section on this YouTube video. If you found this video useful, please click like and subscribe so that you'll see more of our videos in the future. This grammar explanation is part of a completely free course, so if you aren't registered yet, follow the link below and sign up now to keep on learning.